Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. It's Rookie Farmer. This is a relatively new channel. I just started up. I have other channels that I use for my motorcycle building, etc. But this one here I decided to do I have a small farm, so I wanted to do some stuff that I normally do on my small farm. Anyways, behind me I have a new Mahindra 5145. I upgraded to this tractor from a Mahindra 1635, and previous was a 3016, also a Mahindra. I do like the Mahindra line. I upgraded to this 5145 because of I decided to get into cattle, and I bought some haying equipment, and I felt this machine was a little bit more capable of handling the hay equipment. The 1635 would handle it just fine, but I have some rather rolling hills and stuff in the pasture, so I felt that I needed to move up with a tractor with a little bit more weight, so I felt a little more secure driving with the heavier implements. Anyways, what I want to do in this video is kind of go over some of my pros and cons. Now, these are my opinions. I'm not a huge farmer. I'm not a a professional farmer. I'm not a lifelong farmer. I'm relatively new at this. So basically these are just my opinions of things that I've found that I like and dislike of this tractor. And being that this series of tractor is rather new for Mahindra, I would go ahead and just give you my opinions of them, since most of the videos that are on YouTube are not of, basically a review. Basically, the tractor that I currently have right now, I've had it for about a month. I've put 13 hours on it at this point. We are just coming out of fall and into spring, so the weather's starting to get warm, and currently our pastures are growing for our first hay season coming up. So anyways, the following videos, I'll break them down in sections, and I'll just give you my pros and cons. If you have questions about things that I have on this tractor, feel free to drop them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer. All right, we're back on here. If you hear the noise, it's probably we got a little breeze going on. It's a little cool here. I live in eastern Tennessee, up in the Cumberland Plateau area, and I live basically at the top of a hill on some open, basically pasture land, and it does get kind of breezy here. So anyways, this is my 5145. It's got 13 hours on it, and so far I love it. It's much bigger than the 1635 for sure. The dealer I got from, they were out of the ballast to put in the tank, the tires. So right now I'm running it without ballast. But as with my 1635, I purchased, I had the backhoe assembly. I'm 50s, in the 50s here, so when it comes to digging big holes and things like that, I don't want to do that laborious stuff anymore. So I bought the backhoe. I used it quite a bit for digging up stumps and things like that, doing some planting trees, things like that. It was really awesome to have a backhoe. It's expensive to have one, but when you need it, it's awesome. And so I didn't mind purchasing it for this one. Again, these were on back order, the backhoe was, so I'm waiting for that. So whenever the backhoe comes in, then they're going to apply the ballast in the rear tires. I like the ballast in the tires because I've already done some digging. I did a pond extension on my property, and I used the soil from the pond extension. I piled it up, and I use it for going around on the property if I need some fill dirt or something like that. So what I notice is that on this tractor, without having the ballast in it, you can literally pick the usually it doesn't pick up the whole rear end, but it'll pick up a tire off the rear tire off the ground when you start digging into some wet soil with the lifting capacity on this tractor. So I would highly recommend getting ballast in the tires. If not, if you don't do ballast in the tires or don't want to, then you may want to look at carrying a heavy implement on the back, or getting a ballast box or something like that in the back. So other than that, that's a a pro is having ballast in there. It could be a con for some of you. My most favorite feature of this tractor is the fuel tank. Having two Mahindras in the past, and the fuel fill being up here on the top of the hood, when you have to climb up on the tractor and hold a 5-gallon pail and sit there and fill the tank, that can be tedious and it can be a good arm strain. So I really like having it down here on the lower section. It's much nicer. This one has an extra step because it is a much taller tractor. It still has all the same features as far as the padded flooring, the nice seat. There is a bonus to this on the 5145, is it has basically this like shock absorber, if you're familiar or unfamiliar with it. So you can set the tension down here on the bottom on your body weight, so how much, how soft you want your ride. The other nice feature compared to my other tractors was all metal. Everything's metal around here. The only thing that's plastic in the area of the working section is the electronics cowls, basically. Other than that, the handles are nice and steel. I guess this could be a pro or a con. My 1635, the cup holder was molded into the plastic wheel well, and it fit this drink cup fairly well. And as you can see on the bottom of the drink cup, it's got a wear ring from where it would bounce inside of it, where this cup holder is much larger. So I got to come up with something to put around the bottom of this, because it'll want to flop out of there when you run into some rough trails. It's pretty nice, I guess, if you like, if you got a Bubba mug that you want to put in there, something big, so it'll keep it from bouncing around. We'll come up in here into the cab section of it. I've seen some people complain about the long PTO shaft. Myself, I don't see it as an issue. It is kind of wanky and it looks like it's an afterthought, but I think the whole purpose is in your area that you're working, everything is comfortable to grab a hold of. So I think their goal was to keep it from being way down here. It was a shorter shaft, that they put it up here so everything was within reach without having to lean forward, etc. So some people, that was a con. To me, I'm neutral with it. It functions, and really no complaint. A problem that I've had so far, and I'm going to probably take it and look at it myself, or I'll have the dealer look at it, is on the parking brake, it has a switch, and that switch sounds an alarm when you put them, if the tractor's in gear, letting you know that your parking brake is on. It's been intermittently working and not working. I like the parking brake alarm, simply for the fact because when I had my 1635, I could drive the tractor with the parking brake on if I never hit the brake. And at least having that audible alarm lets you know that you have a brake or something's not right, but most likely it's because your brake is in there. I have found that activating the four-wheel drive to be a little bit finicky, as far as it's kind of really stiff, and maybe this will go away over time. So I've had a couple instances where I was driving forward and I just hit the brakes and said I need four-wheel drive, and I can't get it to go into four-wheel drive. So basically I'd have to back up for a second and then it would activate. So it was like it was in between gears or something. So potentially an issue, or just that the thing needs to be broke in a little bit more, but pretty stiff to get into four-wheel drive. Next would be your high-low medium shift. This is the first tractor I've had where you had two separate gear. You had a separate gear shift for your ranges. If you're familiar with the compact tractors, you had all your speeds on one, and you had a high and low shifter. So you only had high and low, and then you had a total of 6 speeds, where this one is high, low, medium, and then you have a 4-way shifter on the other side. One of my next complaints, it's not a deal breaker, but it is kind of a complaint. I'm not a very tall guy, you know, I'm 5'9", so I have to run my seat a little bit farther forward because simply when you want to start the tractor, it has a safety switch in the clutch, so you have to have the clutch depressed in order to start the tractor, and that switch is when the clutch is completely depressed, which goes way back in there. So I have to run the seat a little bit farther forward so that I can activate the switch comfortably, and so, you know, that's a plus or a minus for some of y'all. If you're a taller person, it may not be a big of a deal, but I still find myself able to get in and out of the tractor with the seat forward. I'm kind of lazy, I guess. I don't slide it all the way back in order to make it more accessible to get into the cab area of the tractor. The shift is the same for the shuttle shift on my previous Mahindra tractors. You know, forward for forward, reverse for reverse. Another nice feature is it has a light switch in the for a light in the back near your where you could hook your implement, so you'd be able to see if it was in the evening hours. So you can turn that on right here. It's really nice. I like that, having the light in the back. So if you don't have one, maybe consider putting one in your own tractor. Another feature I like on this tractor was the economy mode on the PTO. I haven't used it yet. Right now we're coming out of winter, so I'm going through and greasing all my implements and stuff, so I have yet to figure out which implements I'm going to use on the economy mode, but to give that stuff a try. I have engaged the PTO, but I do like that feature, having the economy mode. This one does have a much larger fuel tank compared to my 1635. This one has a 17-gallon tank, where the 1635 had a 7. This is a 4-cylinder versus a 3-cylinder on the 1635. Let's see, we'll go around on the other side, so hold on. Another nice feature is the turn signals, the horn. The light is up here. If you're familiar with the 1635, it was down on the side, and it was on the other side where you entered into the tractor, and I always found myself bumping and turning things on and not realizing it, and I guess driving around looking like an idiot with my blinker going. So I do like that feature of having it up here on the top. The key has a really positive detent lock to it. So when you go to put it in, you actually have to use a little bit of pressure to actually push the key in. So I guess it's a good thing if you're just, it's not easily going to fall out. Again, here's the shifter. It's 1 through 4. Like I said, everything in this cab of the tractor is really accessible without having to like lean forward and move in an uncomfortable fashion. You can literally do everything while just sitting in a normal position. This is for your lower links, raise and lower them. Nice feature is, you know, they have this lock, so you can set, if you don't want it to go all the way down, you can set the top and the bottom by using these thumb wheel adjustments. And then you have your lever for your rear remotes. This tractor only has one set of remotes. Currently I don't have any implements that use rear hydraulics until I get my backhoe. And then my backhoe, according to the dealers, there's going to be some kind of latch that gets mounted on here that when you have your backhoe attachment on, you have to activate it forward and then you latch it. I'm assuming that's what it is. We'll see when it gets here. Another nice feature that I like is having the throttle at the steering wheel. On my 1635, it was down here on the lower console, kind of like a lawnmower throttle, and I didn't really care for it. When I had my 3016, it had this same, and it was so much nicer having the throttle up here at the top versus down here. It felt more comfortable because while you're driving, if you needed to change speed in a hurry, you could literally reach right here versus trying to fiddle and find it down here on your console. So it was much nicer having it up here. That's a pro to me. The next one was the for your fell. Super comfortable. Again, as you can see, this got the nice bends. It's trying to bring everything where it's ergonomically correct when you're sitting in the console area. So really nice. And then the to lock your diff, it was kind of similar to 1635. It was down on the floor, but I think it was on the opposite side. Still a nice feature. I've already used it once on this tractor. And then another thing is this controls your speed of how fast your lower links drop. I find this to be a con. I'm going to have the dealer check it. Something's not right with it. I don't know if this is normal. I can't really see it, but I got it adjusted to what I think is adjusted to go as fast as, you know, it'll go to drop the links down, but it's still not fast enough. And this thing's so wobbly, so I don't know if I'm binding while I'm trying to turn the thing. But as you can see, look at it, it's really, really wobbly. I can't see up in there to be able to determine if it's like a U-joint type system that goes down into it, but so I'm gonna have the dealer check that whenever they pick it back up to do my backhoe. Right now I got it set where I'm content with the speed that it's dropping, but I'd like to see be able to go as faster if I could. So that's another one. The floor throttle on the 1635, it had a little tiny button. This is a much bigger pedal. I do like that. And then on the brakes, this lever I've found a couple times now where it keeps wanting to come out, and then I'm only pressing one brake. So I don't know if this can be tightened, but I'm going to inspect that later on. It's just, you know, it's a heads up to know that that can come out pretty easy. The hydraulics, if you're familiar with the Mahindras, to remove the fell, I only did it once with my 1635. You know, it may or may not. Again, they're colored with this colored zip ties on there. Nice thing is they get plugs to plug everything. Kind of wish they gave caps, but they don't. So, but you have plugs for the hoses to go on here. The battery box is in a really nice place. I never had problems with my battery previous, where certain people have on the 1635 or the other ones that they mount the battery up in the front of the hood, and which is a little bit more difficult to get to because you have the rush guard in the way, and your battery literally set like right up in the front, up in here. But the battery being right here is really nice. All right, so we'll move it on to the back. Here's the light I was telling you about. For the light switch, it's up on the dash. So, and it's pretty bright. I've actually came out here and tested it out. I will point out that when I got the tractor, one of the links was driven down quite a bit different than the other one. So I was trying to adjust it and I could not adjust it. And I ended up just pulling the links off. So this is a word of warning to any of you guys that may get one. And these links, both links are adjustable, which is a really nice feature. The downfall is they put a Zerk fitting on each one of them. And how it works is the threaded, you know, these are turnbuckles, so one's threaded right-handed thread and the other one's threaded left-handed thread. And they screw into this tube. And they're adjustable by lifting this up and turning it, you know, in or out. And then it's got a locking tabs to keep it from, you know, unscrewing itself. So what I found is that one was driven all the way, you know, out quite a bit, and someone had pumped grease in it and they filled the inside of the tube. So what that happened is when I tried to run this thing in, I could not run it in because I was hydro locking. So I literally had to disassemble the entire link and I probably pulled a cup of grease out of the tube. I literally had to take a paint stick and stick a paint stick in there and turn it around, kind of like, and scoop it out and pull out the wads of grease, and then screw it back in to recompact it again, and then shoved it back in there. So I did it twice, getting a lot of grease out of it. So now the link will go all the way in and out the way it's supposed to. So just a heads up, if you're going to use that grease port fixture, I'd make sure that your links are all the way driven in, so that way you don't have a hydrolocking, and you won't, you know, you'll later on figure it out. So that's a pointer there. The next I like is these links. Coming from the 1635, the links were probably a weak link in the tractor. These are much more robust. I really like how they lock. So what they do is when you pull this pin, you set the sway in your link where you want it, and then you push this tube until it butts up against here, and then you set your pin, and that's what locks it from going out this way. Your implement's going to naturally lock it from wanting to go this way, but this stops that. There stops the ability to swing out, so you would adjust it from here. I'm going to get some D-ring style connectors. I don't really care for this. I think it's kind of hokey. It's kind of like a key ring that they stretched out to twist off of here and adjust it. So I'm going to get something different. You know, bear in mind, I only got 13 hours on this machine, so I haven't started doing a couple little of my own personal touch upgrades. So that's a pointer. So if you don't like this, you may want to do the same thing. It still has the telescoping links. I like, which I had the 1635 had them, which was really nice. Again, the opposite side has the same type of link, really nice. Again, adjustable. A complaint that I do have is this top link. I don't know who this was like an afterthought when it came to building this section up here. It's not a deal breaker, but it is somewhat of a hassle, and that's removing this pin. And you can't swap the pin around. The head has like this square thing on it which cams it to the back here for the top link section, so you got two positions for this. And if you notice, this linkage for your PTO is right next to it. So what happens is, when you want to pull this out, actually I'll show you. You want to try to pull this out. If I can do this one-handed with a camera, you can see the link hits there, and it's a shouldered pin, so it means it can only go in one direction. So you're having to fight this thing in. So if you're having trouble connecting your top link of whatever implement you have, sometimes some implements you don't even use this, you use the actual part. And perfect example is my post hole digger. When you put the post hole digger in there, you don't use this, so you're fighting this, you know, trying to connect the post hole digger, and then dealing with this link, this pin going in here. So that's definitely a con to me. I said it's not a deal breaker, but it does make it much more of a hassle when it comes to installing your top link section on there. So just a pointer on that one. The other thing is the drawbar. Everything is Cat 1 or Cat 2 simply by rotating the ball in the links, and you can see there's a secondary hole for the was it 3/4 inch pin and a 1 inch pin. The drawbar, I like it, but I don't have any Cat 2 implements at this point. So I kind of wish that this was kind of a quick attach, this hitch section of it. You can unbolt it, but it's made for Cat 2 implements. You know, like my square baler, it doesn't have a pin size this big, so I'm gonna have to, you know, get a different pin, maybe some inserts, you know, bushings put in there, so I'll be able to use that implement, or get one of the cross tie drawbars to go in here. That way I don't have to deal with it. So It's great if you got Cat 2 items, but for the most part, if you unbolt all this, then you have the big giant pinhole, and it's not reversible. At least I haven't tried to reverse it. Another nice feature is being able to offset it, which is really nice. I didn't have that feature in my 1635, but it makes it nice there. Another nice feature is, if you're familiar with some of them that have the guards that go around where your PTO shaft comes out, the guard are generally smaller. It definitely was on my 1635, so it made it a really a hassle trying to fit your hands inside there to activate the lock to put your PTO device on there. This folds up, so it gives you a little bit more room. This one's got paint all over it. I have yet to take it up to the shop and hit this thing with a wire wheel, because I've tried putting a couple of implements on it, and that paint is just making it really tough to get them on there. So it's been scraped off some, but there's still a lot left on there. It still makes it tough to get on there. So that's an item you may have to address with your own. The toolbox is kind of a joke. I don't know why these companies put these little tiny toolboxes on there when everything in a tractor is huge. From having some kind of wrench to adjust parts and tools, to a hammer to be able to drive some of these rusty pins in and out. You just can't fit none of that stuff in this little thing. So I'm undecided if I'm gonna actually get a full-size toolbox and mount it to the tire well, being they are steel. I may end up doing that because I like to carry chain, some rags, extra D-pins, you name it, whatever extra tools that you would normally carry with a tractor. You know, that's the benefits of having a tractor, is you don't have to be running back and forth, especially if you're out in the field. All right, so came to a topper. I had this topper from my 1635, and on the 5145 it has 3 holes on each side, so I ended up having to build my own brackets for this, because these toppers are, they're like $700 through Mahindra, and this one's, I don't know, it's 11-12 years old, and it had a crack in it, and I actually fiberglassed. I took it off the old tractor and fiberglassed underneath it, and then rebolted it back down. So, you know, I got a lot more life out of it. But I ended up having to make these brackets, which was not a big deal. So if you have something that's similar, it was pretty simple. 1/4-inch steel plates welded because of the width difference between the 1635 your rollover frame. This one's narrower than it was on the 1635. It's much wider and beefier, so your U-bolts won't work. So I made these plates. It was through holes, and it already had the holes in the actual rollover frame, so I did all that on my own. So that's it for this, and we'll move a little forward. Almost forgot. The rear remotes, they're right here. So I'm guessing if you were to put a secondary set, those would mount right here. All right, coming from the 1635 with a backhoe, I'll say these are in a much better location. On the 1635, you have a subframe that bolts onto the frame that they use to, like a cradle system that you hook the backhoe on, and your remotes are basically in between your links and the frame over here, which was rather difficult sometimes. You had to make sure you had all the pressure off of your hydraulics in order to disconnect the lines, because you couldn't afford to give enough strength because of the disadvantage of being able to try to disconnect some of the hoses off of the back, where these are definitely in a much more accessible area. So when I get the backhoe, these will definitely be much easier to access. So that's a pointer there, having your rear remotes at a better access point. All right, we're sitting here in the cab area. I've slid the seat all the way back, so you can see, like I said, I'm 5'9", and my big pointer was with the starting the safety switch. You have to push that clutch all the way in, so you can see my legs all nice and super straight just to get that to activate it. So I have to run the seat a lot farther, so I don't have super long legs. So I was born that way. So just remember that, you know, that's, you know, kind of an issue for me personally, so I have to slide the seat back. But as you can see, I mean, there's a good, what, 6-7 inches between my knees and that, with the seat all the way back. You got tilt wheel, and that's with this button here. You can tilt the wheel, and then of course your brakes. Everything's all accessible. I mean, my arm, I got a bend in my arm to be able to get to the actual fel, the gear shift, your rear hydraulics, and your PTO, lowering your triples. And then over on this side, here's your gear shift for your high, low, medium, four-wheel drive, access right there, parking, brake. I do find it to be kind of cluttered right in here, especially if you got the armrest down. And then I've tried moving the seat belt thing back farther to give myself a little bit more room. Other than that, it's not terrible. Your emergency parking brake, and then access. Basically, the 540E is just a gear select, so you're either running it in neutral or in the E or in the normal 540 position. And then as again, this big gigantic lever to put the PTO into gear. All in all, it's not bad. So we'll move on to the dash. Let me move this down. Hopefully you can see a little bit better. Like I said, access to the turn signals and the light switch, your forward and reverse. The dash is really nice. As you can see, you got your 540 and your 540E, two different RPM ranges for whichever one you're going to work, your fuel level, and your temperature gauge. One thing I have found is that these dash LEDs, indicator LEDs, are terrible. They're in the sun, you can't see them. Maybe we'll see if we can see them in here. So we have it turned on. You can see when you get in, I'm under a shade of the barn, so no direct sunlight. You can hardly even see those things in the sun, so you have to really pay attention to it. As you see, my hours, this tractor is relatively brand new. I just got it, and just doing this video to kind of help people out a little bit. Yeah, and other than that, the pollen right now, if you live in the southern states, the pine pollen is terrible. It's everywhere. So anyways, that's here in the cab. Like I said, again, your adjustment here, you have your seat lever for going forward and reverse, and you have a good fair amount of travel. So we'll move it forward to the bucket. All right, we're at the front end loader section. I have it in the back here. You have some bolts, and then up here in the front you have some bolts. On some of the Mahindra models, they had problems with these bolts coming loose. So you'll want to keep check on these. They've went through and they've painted these yellow stripes on it, and you can see that the paint is not broken, so that means the bolt is still tight. It's a really heavy paint, so you'll want to keep check of those, because it can come loose and holding your front end loader on. This does have the flange type axle system that my 1635 had, and I had an issue with that, with these bolts coming loose, and I actually didn't notice it till I had quite a few hours on it, and then I noticed a big gap, and I seen it from the front when I was looking at it from the front, and you can see the axle the way they join together. And what it was is I saw an air gap in here, and that means those bolts came loose. And see, there's no torque paint or anything like that on here, so you don't know if the paint's broke loose or not. and you won't know that they're loose because it doesn't leak oil, because there's a shaft seal in here and there's most likely a shaft seal in here on this drive unit on this side. So when these two separate, no oil leaks out, so you won't know it. So you have to keep an eye on those. Like I said, I did have that issue with them come loose on my 1635, and what I did was I just completely, put the tractor up and jacked it up, and then I took the main load off of it, and I just removed one bolt at a time and added some blue thread lock to them and retorqued them back down, and then I didn't have any more problems after that. So that's on both sides, so you'll want to keep check on those. We'll move around here to the bucket. Now I'm not a heavy tractor guy. I use it because you need them to do things around a farm. I have no really experience with industrial tractors. I mean, I was a diesel mechanic in my younger years, and I worked on tractors, but I never actually used them. I wasn't the end user. So what I found is this one came with an option, and I don't think I would get it, or I didn't get it, and I don't really see a need to get it. It has in the bucket, it has the holes to mount the teeth if you want bucket teeth. For me, yes, there's uses to have the teeth when you're wanting to do some digging. The teeth help with digging. But when it comes to like when you're wanting to do some landscape work, as far as like using the bucket to smooth out your dirt, the teeth would be a problem, and I don't want to have to unbolt these teeth. So I think that I'm just going to get a tooth bar that will slide and lock on here, and you bolt, and you'll have to drill holes in the side of the bucket to bolt them in place and do it for that. And then it's simply unbolting two bolts and sliding the tooth bar off, and then you have a nice clean edge again, versus having to undo probably 8 to 10 teeth on here and remove those in order to be able to do that feature. So I'm not a fan of those holes. You may be, but this is my particular opinion. Another nice feature is the bucket leveler. It's painted red, so when it's flush to the top, the pin is flush at the top. Excuse me, get it in the picture here. Your bucket's level when it touches the ground or close to it. That's pretty standard, I think, on Mahindras anymore. Same thing again, more bolts on here. So you'll want to keep check on those. Same thing, like I said, with that right there. I have heard of others had a couple hydraulic leaks. I don't know where, so you may want to come through and bump all your fittings, all your compression fittings or flare fittings. Make sure that they're torqued up, or keep check for oil leaks. And then that's, from what I've heard, that's where those came from. And it could have been just a one-off thing, but just things to keep in mind. The oil fills in a great spot. The exhaust, I kind of wish they kind of brought it out a little bit farther, but it is what it is. It's where it's at. That's the exhaust right there. You can see right there's the oil filter, and it's got like a metal cage protecting it, which is pretty nice. I'm not going to worry about getting up into the hood. It's an engine. I need to work on it, and then I'll cover that later on in another video. But anyways, that's it for my 5145. Like I said, this is a new series from Mahindra. I really like the tractor. It rides great. The sound is not overpowering. As far as when you're sitting on the tractor, when I was on the 1635, that 3-cylinder, a little more vibration came through. I felt it was a little noisier than what this one is. All in all, I guess it's an upgrade from the 1635, so for sure should be a better tractor. So anyways, that's it for this one. Please like and subscribe. Follow me for some of my other videos that we're going to do, and as far as repairing implements and any other things, and there'll be some future updates for this tractor on my page. So please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.